What's up, guys? Welcome back to the HCP podcast. One last week of football before the postseason gets underway, and of course, fantasy football just wrapped up, unless you're a weirdo and you play in week 17. But let's get into a pretty high-scoring game of football with Minnesota versus New Orleans. Let's go ahead and just get this out the way. Kamara is the offensive player of the week, offensive player of the fucking year with that performance. 6 rushing touchdowns. That's the most. I think it was like the most in since some guy in 1929.
Yeah.
Like before the merger or something.
Could have broke it, but Sean Payton screwed him over.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. We don't even have to say the rest of the stats. Just 6 rushing touchdowns. It's unreal. In Minnesota, I'm pretty sure that just ruined their playoff chances. I'm pretty sure they're not officially eliminated. I don't know, but I don't think Minnesota was gonna outdo Chicago at all. But a great game from Kamara. I believe he was the only person who was scoring touchdowns because I don't think Breeze threw a single touchdown at all. So that's just insane in itself. And then let's move on to a great Saturday game. Really was a boring game for the first 3 quarters, and the last 7 minutes were insane. But Miami versus Las Vegas. This loss for Las Vegas knocked them pretty much, in my mind, out of the playoffs. I don't think they'll be able to best a lot of these other teams. So you got 10-5 teams for the straight 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 seeds. And we'll talk about that later, but no way in hell Las Vegas can outdo those guys. So I think Las Vegas's end here was pretty disappointing. They looked like a really good team early on, and of course they beat the Chiefs, but you really hate to see it happen to a team like this, but it's just overall disappointing. Going into a game that was actually pretty good and decided a lot of stuff going into the AFC playoff picture, Indiana versus Pittsburgh. I do want to hear, with this performance from Pittsburgh, do you think this changes your mind at all on their team?
A little bit. I mean, they did well. They had a good comeback, but it's still not enough for me yet. They're not playing Roethlisberger this week, so we can't really judge this week. But going into the playoffs, I'm excited to see what they can do, but it was a good comeback. I got to give it to them. Good game by the Steelers.
And then another one of those teams that are 10-5 being Indiana. They're on the outside looking in now. They're now at the 8th seed. If it were to end today, they play a pretty easy opponent next week, but it's really just a matter of how good everyone else does, since they are the one team that's looking into the playoff picture. So do you think Indiana's going to be left out?
It's going to be a shocker if they do, man, because I really wanted to see them get into the playoffs. I wanted to see Rivers get in there and see if he could make a championship run.
Yeah.
Because it would be nice to see Rivers do something, because he hasn't done much in the playoffs in his career.
All right, and then the next one, we got Los Angeles versus Seattle. Rams fans, I feel for you because your starting quarterback's probably not going to be here probably for the first round of the playoffs, since he just had surgery on his thumb or something like that. But a pretty disappointing game from the Rams. Of course, Goff was dealing with that injury pretty much for the second half of the game, but he wasn't playing great beforehand. So it really is going to be interesting, because the Rams are another one of those teams where they play the Cardinals this week, so they could get knocked out very easily if they lose to the Cardinals. That puts them in the chance to where, a very strong Rams team, especially a strong defense, could have another disappointing end and just fall short of the playoffs. What about you? Seattle, they've now clinched the division, so they are definitely in for sure. I don't think anyone doubted that. Do you think the Cards have, especially without Goff, do you think the Cards have what it takes to not only make the playoffs but ruin the Rams season?
They definitely do. The Rams' offense looks absolutely horrible against a good defense a bad defense in Seattle. You got to do better on offense. The run game looked a lot worse without Cam Akers for sure. And Goff just making horrible throws, throwing picks. It's just not a good situation right now. They got to pick it up. 2 bad weeks in a row.
Yeah, but I do see Kyler Murray is questionable, so that'll have to be something. If both of these starting QBs are out, I don't know what this game is going to look like. It's going to be really weird. But it's pretty much the whole Cardinals offense. I don't know what the Cardinals offense would look like without Kyler Murray, but we'll see if that ends up becoming the case. Tennessee versus Green Bay, though, an ugly, ugly week for Tennessee. Derrick Henry playing spoiler for most of your fantasy teams out there. I know you played spoiler for yours. Green Bay, another great performance. Green Bay's going to the Super Bowl. I'm just going to put that out there. This team is so good. This offense has been playing phenomenal, but this defense is being anchored by guys like Jair Alexander. Darnell Savage has started to poke his head. And, of course, Zadarius and Preston Smith, they have been playing great still. These guys are not something to mess around with. This Green Bay team not only is the NFC favorites, but I think they're going to be the only team from the NFC that is going to be able to give Kansas City a run for their money. What about you?
Oh, yeah, and I was really impressed in that game. That's how you beat the Titans right there. You get up early, you game script Derrick Henry out, and then they just look clueless. I mean, it was great defense. They had a good game plan going into it. They stopped Derrick Henry, and then they got ahead early. And when you take Derrick Henry out of their offense, they're not what they usually are.
And then let's go right into Monday Night Football. Bills, another great performance from Diggs, another great performance from Allen. Pats, I believe, do they have 9 losses or 10 losses now?
I believe they're 6 and 9.
6 or 9 or 6 and 10. I'm pretty sure it's 6 and 9, which I believe that's your first losing season in like the past 15 million years.
21 years,
That's insane, bro. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy about it, but I don't really care. I knew the Bills were going to be this good coming into the offseason. I knew they were just going to completely dominate. And the Bills are that good of a team. I thought the Pats would do better, but they have had some injury troubles. Of course, losing Edelman, probably about the only big guy on that offense, if you want to consider him a big guy. But, yeah, Bills proving once again they're going to make some noise in the playoffs. And hell, I thought the Bills might be facing up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but hell, with how good the Bills have played, they're not going to be doing that. I don't think the seeding works out that way. But we already said our offensive players of the week. Let's get right into our defensive player of the week. I want to hear, who do you have as the bright star coming into week 17?
All right, well, let's talk about someone on the Cowboys, Randy Gregory, with 3 forced fumbles. That was a game changer in that game. Helped them beat the Eagles by a lot. Good performance by the Cowboys, and he definitely helped a lot.
Jalen Hurts had like 411 yards and they only scored 3 points in the second half. That tells you how big. And actually, I saw that we have forced, 10? I'm pretty sure it's 10 turnovers in the last 3 games. That leads the league. I never thought I'd be saying that with the Dallas Cowboys. The first 3 games, they were statistically the worst defense in NFL history. And, they've shown a great spark. I don't know if it's going to be big enough to overcome the football team or if it's really just going to be, if the Eagles can play spoiler and we can beat the Giants, because the Giants are still a really good defense. So I'm not going to underestimate them at all. And then my defensive player of the week, I'm going to give it to Roquan Smith. Roquan is a guy who I think is pretty underrated for Chicago, and this week he proved it. 2 interceptions, 2 pass deflections, 8 total tackles. A great week for Roquan Smith, really helping his Bears try and clinch that playoff spot, but pretty much no one is safe in the NFC and AFC. But before we get into that, we've already talked about how wide open the NFC East is, but a potential factor, who knows how good this team will be next week against Philadelphia, because we don't even know if Alex Smith is going to be the starting QB or Taylor Heineke is going to be the starting QB, because Dwayne Haskins isn't on that team anymore. Yeah, Strip Club Boy done got released. I saw Carolina is among other teams. I mean, do you think he even has a chance at doing anything? I don't think he gets signed. I don't think he gets signed at all.
I hope he doesn't. I mean, that guy's a punk. He's been a punk since he's joined the NFL. Yeah. He's done nothing but bad things. He's played bad. So there's just no reason to sign him, man, unless you want trouble in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, and the weird thing is, he's one of those guys you would think would cause trouble, but he was voted captain by his peers. He's just was a cancer on that team. So it's going to be really interesting to look at. And then a report that I saw come out this morning, Julio has apparently been in trade talks, not only last offseason, but now this upcoming offseason. He's been in trade talks. I know a lot of teams out there that could use a wide receiver, but I mean, really, it's just going to be a lot of, do you think the Falcons do it? Because when you look at it the way that the Falcons are probably going to go without Matt Ryan this year, that's what I'm thinking, and they'll probably go for a guy like Zach Wilson, like we've touched on before. So do you think they want to be like, you know what, let's keep Calvin and get rid of Julio and build upon our defense, maybe get some picks or some talent? Or do you think they're just going to be like, let's not change anything? Because what I've seen from this Falcons team, they've shown some bright spots, but it's just they've just never been able to keep a lead. Do you think Julio goes anywhere?
I don't know, man. It's tough to say because he's been so loyal to that team. It would be kind of screwed up for them to just trade him, because he even said he would stay with that team through thick and thin. I mean, he loved being in Atlanta, even though they've never done good. besides that one Super Bowl run. I don't know what happened there, though. But, I mean, it'd be nice to see him play somewhere else. I mean, I think all of the NFL would like to see that. All the fans would like to see that. See what he can do with another quarterback. Maybe the Patriots, maybe somebody like that needs a receiver. I mean, it'd be good to see him move around. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, and then let's go right into the AFC playoff picture. We've already talked about 10-5. All of these teams are. Let's run through each matchup. Titans versus Houston, Miami versus Buffalo, Baltimore versus Cincinnati, Cleveland versus Pittsburgh, and Indiana versus Jacksonville. Indiana isn't losing to Jacksonville again. I can tell you that for sure. Jacksonville isn't going to mess up their tank like the Jets did. The Jets pretty much just gave up and they decided to start playing good, which is weird. So I think Indiana's going to win against Jacksonville. Tennessee's going to win against Houston, so Tennessee's going to clinch that spot in the division. But Cleveland and Miami isn't going to be making the playoffs. I'm sorry. There's just no way Baltimore loses against Cincinnati. I mean, we saw Pittsburgh lose against Cincinnati, but Pittsburgh is garbage. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, who do you think Indiana just do you think all these teams win out, or do you think Indiana beats out Cleveland or Miami?
Dude, it's gonna be tough to say, man. I really have. I mean, the Browns, they choked that game, man. That hurts them so bad. It's tough to see that, man. Browns coming off of that long losing streak, and then you lose to the Jets for your season, basically. I mean, they got to clutch up this week and somehow get in. You got to pray for other teams to lose, and same with the Colts. I mean, there's just a ton of scenarios that have to go right for both those teams to get in.
But not only that, you don't know if the Buffalo Bills are going to be playing spoiler or not. You don't know if Miami's going to come up just playing incredible, because Miami's still a good team, but Buffalo is on another level this season. And for that to be the game to decide if you're going into the playoffs or not, that's not something I would trust. Because if Miami's the one team that loses here, that's going to be unfortunate. I don't know the specifics, the tiebreakers if Miami and Cleveland lose, because that could very much well be a possibility. Of course, Pittsburgh is without Mason Rudolph, but I mean, after the Jets, Mason Rudolph's better than Sam Darnold, in my opinion. Not really. That's an overstretch, but still, it's going to be really interesting looking at the AFC playoff picture. I honestly think Indiana is going to sneak in, and I think Miami's going to lose against the Bills. I think Cleveland will win against Pittsburgh, and I think Miami's going to be getting knocked out of the playoffs, which isn't going to be the worst thing, because if Houston loses like I think they will against Tennessee, then they'll have like the second or third overall pick, which is beyond me. Houston, that just tells us how bad of a franchise you guys are. Y'all are absolute dog crap. Get Deshaun Watson out of there. Let's head right over to the NFC. Everyone knows that the NFC East is wide open, but let's talk about the Rams versus Cardinals. Winner is in. The winner of this game is into the playoffs, and the loser could still have a chance because the Bears play Green Bay, and unless Green Bay plays just benches their big guys, which they could do. They haven't announced that they're going to do it. I don't think they will. Do you think Green Bay plays spoilers, and do you think even if the Rams lose here, do you think the Bears could still get knocked out by them?
Yeah, for sure, because it's a division rival. I mean, you always want to make a statement against those type of games, just because you hate them. You know, it's the Bears and Green Bay, one of those rivalries that it's always competitive. So, it's going to be exciting. It's a very competitive division in the AFC, and it's going to be some big games in the NFC. I mean, the Rams, dude, I had such high hopes for them. I mean, I kind of hope that they can beat the Cardinals. Just to see what they can do with Jared Goff in the playoffs. I know it's going to be tough with the backup quarterback against the Cardinals, but I'll be rooting for the Rams because, I mean, I thought they were going to be so good, and then they just fell off a cliff after that Jets loss.
Yeah, and now we finally get to talk about who do you think is going to win the NFC East. Let me lay it out. Washington versus Philly. If Philly wins, Washington is out either way. That's the end of it. If Washington needs to win and they're in, if they lose, they're out. But for Dallas and New York, it's not that simple. I mean, Dallas, if they win, they're not in yet because then they have to ride off of Washington losing. And same thing with New York. Who do you think is going to be the lone guy to get blown out by the Bucks? I mean, not the Bucks. It's I don't even know who's going to be the 7th seed. Probably going to end up being the Rams, Cardinals, or Bears. One of those guys. Who do you think is going to be the lone guy getting blown out?
I think Eagles are going to beat the Redskins, and then I think the Cowboys are going to...
Wow.
I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but my prediction, I think the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. It's going to be... I don't know, man. It's such a toss-up that it's just so hard to call. All those teams are looking so even.
Yeah.
But I think that the Eagles are definitely going to beat Washington. I'm confident in saying that. I'm not too confident in calling the Cowboys and the Giants game just yet. But the Giants have just been they've been playing like crap, and Dallas has been on a hot streak. So it's a perfect opportunity for Dallas, man. I think they can do it.
I think it's more complicated. If Alex Smith starts against Philadelphia, Washington is winning that game because they have Antonio Gibson back. They don't have any really big injuries here, and Alex Smith just makes that team better, in my opinion. If Taylor Heineke is the guy starting, I don't know how much I trust that, and I think I will go Philly there just because of how good Jalen Hurts. And by the way, if you think Jalen Hurts losing against Dallas is enough for him to not be the QB of the future, you're still a delusional Wentz fan. Wentz is not good for y'all. I don't know if specifically he won't be good anywhere else. I can't determine that, but he's not good for y'all. He won't be anymore because that's just your offense looks way better with Hurts. You can't even deny that. You beat the Saints, and that's not enough for you to think that Wentz isn't the guy to go with, which is just beyond me. But yeah, I think Philadelphia will lose this week. Not lose. I think Philadelphia will win this week, and I think. I don't want to call the game versus New York and Dallas because it's just that close. I mean, New York has such a good offense, such a good defense, but Daniel Jones just sometimes disappears. And honestly, I really don't want to jinx my guys here, so I'm going to knock on wood before I say this, but I think Dallas, I'm going to go with Joey. I think Dallas wins here against New York. Wayne Gallman is probably a guy that would scare me. Same thing with Evan Ingram, but our offense has been playing good. Andy Dalton has been looking great. Our defense has been playing phenomenal compared to their standards, and I think Dallas sneaks into the playoffs. If we would have lost against any of the past three opponents, more specifically San Francisco, like I thought we were going to, then I would have thought different. But we looked great against San Francisco. We looked great against Philly a couple of nights ago. And honestly, we're playing like the best team in the NFC East. And I hate to say that because how in the hell did you let us have a chance at the playoffs? The fact that we have a chance at the playoffs, we were like one of the worst teams in the league like 5 weeks ago. So this team is just in a whole different mindset, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this all ends up. But guys, that's it. We got a huge week of football coming up, a lot of big playoff deciders here, and we'll have everything that we have on it after the week is done, and we'll start going through our playoff predictions. Of course, the fantasy season is over, but catch us tomorrow. We're going to be going through our fantasy awards, and it's kind of going to be the last time we talk about fantasy until like August or September of next year. But guys, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't, click that notification bell. We'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.